John Witherspoon, man, the funniest people I know. He's always been funny my whole life.
John Witherspoon, the comedy legend, the beloved dad of the nation in the Friday film series, shook the world when news of his passing at the age of 77 spread in late 2019. The man who brought endless laughter with his mischievous eyes, distinctive voice, and charming acting is now only a memory in the hearts of his audience. But behind the stage lights, behind the resounding laughter, one question stirred continuous public debate. Why were the cast members of Friday, the very film that made Witherspoon a household name, absent from his funeral? Was it the truth or just an exaggerated misunderstanding? The story behind this painful loss will surprise you. Stay with us until the end to uncover the full truth and join us in honoring a legend. The vibrant childhood of a comedy legend. The story of the Friday cast's absence from John Witherspoon's funeral is in fact merely the final piece of a much larger picture. A picture that begins with his childhood, his personality, and the journey that forged a one-of-a-kind Witherspoon. John Witherspoon, born John Witherspoon, entered the world on January 27, 1942 in the city of Detroit, Michigan. He grew up in a poor but large family with as many as 11 siblings. Being born in the midst of a sea of people at home, young John quickly learned how to stand out in a crowd. In that childhood, mischief and a natural sense of humor became his tools to attract attention from his parents and siblings. Although the Witherspoon family lacked material wealth, their household overflowed with music and creativity. Among his siblings, many were involved in the arts. John's older brother, William Witherspoon, was a songwriter at the legendary Motown label and co-wrote the timeless 1966 hit What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted, a song that captivated the world. Another brother, Cato Witherspoon, became a director at Detroit's PBS television station. Meanwhile, their sister Gertrude Stax chose the religious path and later became a pastor at a local church. Clearly in that household, every child found their own way to shine. And for John, that light was comedy. From a young age, John revealed his natural talent for performing. He would constantly tease his siblings, turning ordinary moments into uproarious skits. Beyond his flair for storytelling, John also had musical talent. He played both the trumpet and the French horn proficiently, two instruments that require serious discipline and practice. This unique blend of music and humor gradually shaped his distinctive performance style, rhythmic, surprising, and always memorable. Detroit at the time was an industrial city famous for its automotive industry and the rise of Motown music. In that environment, John Witherspoon's childhood was filled with the lively sounds of the streets, the soulful and funky melodies from the radio, and the roar of factory machinery. He grew up within that mix, embodying both streetwise grit and a deep love for the arts. At every family gathering, John became the class clown, making his parents shake their heads, while his siblings laughed uncontrollably. Notably, Witherspoon's antics weren't just for fun. He had a special sensitivity to body language. Young John would imitate the walks and voices of neighbors or teachers to make his friends laugh. Many remarked that he was a born performer, able to turn the smallest details of daily life into comedy sketches. This laid the foundation for the memorable characters he would later portray, the grumpy yet lovable dads, or the nosy but unforgettable neighbors. An interesting little-known fact, John actually began his career as a model. In the late 1960s, he participated in a few small fashion shows, making use of his height and distinctive demeanor. Though brief, that experience helped John build confidence in front of crowds and taught him how to control his physical presence, a key element in his signature style of physical comedy. But more profoundly, the driving force behind John Witherspoon's determination to pursue the arts came from his own family. His brother William's success at Motown gave him the belief that a black man from Detroit could step out into the world and leave a mark. In an interview, he once said, "I saw my brother make it in music, and I told myself if music opened a door for him, then comedy could open one for me." In his late teenage years, John began testing his skills at local comedy clubs. These were tough crowds ready to boo if a set wasn't entertaining enough. But it was in those clubs that young John honed his improvisation, learned how to engage with the audience, and turned failure into valuable lessons. Those late nights performing his heart out on Detroit stages prepared him for the road to Hollywood that lay ahead. It can be said that John Witherspoon's childhood and youth were far from easy. He grew up in a Detroit that was both prosperous and unforgiving, in a large family where each person had to prove themselves. But it was precisely within that environment that John found his identity, someone who could turn hardship into laughter and everyday life into art. And when we look back at his iconic roles, from Willie Jones in Friday to Pops in the Wayans Brothers, we realize that the root of his charm had been planted since childhood. John's humor wasn't borrowed from books. It was the essence of a life lived vibrantly from the very beginning. That childhood filled with the sounds of Motown, the mischief of life in a household of 11 siblings, and trumpet notes echoing through the smoky streets of Detroit gave rise to a singular John Witherspoon, a comedy legend with an unmistakably personal touch. And it was that very foundation that propelled him forward onto a brilliant career journey that the next chapter of this story will gradually unfold. The journey to the top. Beginning in the 1960s, John Witherspoon explored various fields, even working briefly as a fashion model for a few years. But it was truly the spotlight of comedy clubs that called his name. It was in these intimate venues where he honed his improvisation skills, learned how to turn failure into material, and quickly became a familiar name in Detroit before expanding to stages in New York and Los Angeles. With a performance style that was spontaneous at times, outrageous, yet irresistibly charming, John could make the audience laugh the moment he stepped onto the stage. The 1970s marked a turning point. He made his television debut in the series Barnaby Jones 1976 and went on to appear in Good Times, What's Happening and The Incredible Hulk. During this period, Witherspoon was mostly cast in minor guest roles, but he transformed each part into a unique comedic moment. This charisma caught the attention of Richard Pryor, the legendary black comedian, who brought John onto The Richard Pryor Show 1977. After just a few episodes, Witherspoon became an essential part of the show's comedic energy, helping make it a defining hit of the decade. By the 1980s, John Witherspoon transitioned into film. He appeared in The Jazz Singer 1980 and quickly made an impression in Hollywood Shuffle. 1987, I'm Gonna Get You Sucka. 1988, and Bird, 1988. But the true breakthrough came in 1992, with Boomerang, where he played Mr. Jones, the father with the iconic line, "You got to coordinate about matching clothes." What seemed like a nonsensical line turned into a pop culture catchphrase, catapulting Witherspoon's name across the United States. However, the pinnacle of his career came when he played Willie Jones, Craig's father Ice Cube, in Friday 1995. Produced on a modest $3.5 million budget, the film grossed over $27 million and became a cult classic in the street comedy genre. Witherspoon's character, with his blend of naive yet profound street wisdom, won over audiences completely. He became the film's comedic soul, brilliantly complementing Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. This success elevated John from a supporting actor to one of the irreplaceable faces of American comedy. His overwhelming popularity led him to return in Next Friday, 2000, and Friday After Next, 2002. Interestingly, his pay reflected his rise from $5,000 in the first installment to $400,000 in the second, and reaching $1 million in the third. These weren't just numbers. They were recognition of the value he brought to audiences. Alongside Friday, John Witherspoon also shined on television. From 1995 to 1999, he played Pops in the sitcom The Wayans Brothers, a clumsy but lovable father. The role became so iconic that fans affectionately called him Pops both on screen and in real life. He later made another mark by voicing Granddad in the satirical animated series The Boondocks 2005-2014. Once again, John's humor resonated with a younger generation, helping him transcend age barriers and become a national grandfather in the animated world. Not stopping there, he appeared in The Tracy Morgan Show 2003, The First Family 2012, Black Jesus 2014-2019, and even an episode of Blackish 2019 just shortly before his passing. Every step, every role, big or small, Witherspoon turned into an unforgettable moment with his inimitable style. He might have only appeared for a few minutes, but audiences remembered him for years. Looking back, John Witherspoon's career journey is a testament to perseverance and a deep love for the arts. He never stopped working, from tiny comedy stages in Detroit to major film sets in Hollywood. Colleagues called him the man who could make a bad script funny with just a look, and audiences gave him a special place in their hearts because his laughter always felt authentic, relatable, and deeply human. And it is from that brilliant career that we come to understand why his passing left such a profound void, not only in the hearts of his fans, but also among those who created the Friday legend alongside him. The comedian's net worth. With such a glorious career, it would be remiss not to mention one aspect that every audience member wonders about. How much did John Witherspoon actually accumulate after decades of dedication to the arts? This is also a key part of understanding the man himself, an artist who was both humble and knew how to assert his worth in the tough world of Hollywood. As mentioned earlier, it's still hard to believe that the role of Dad Willie Jones in Friday 1995 earned Witherspoon just $5,000. A surprisingly modest figure, especially considering the film went on to gross over $27 million at the box office. But that humble beginning opened the door for him to establish his name. In Next Friday 2000, his paycheck jumped to $400,000, and by Friday after Next 2002, it hit the $1 million mark. These figures not only reflect financial growth, but also serve as proof of his rising stature in the eyes of both studios and audiences. By the time of his passing in 2019, John Witherspoon's net worth was estimated at around $4 million. That figure might seem modest compared to many A-list celebrities. Ice Cube, for instance, reportedly has around $160 million, and Nia Long over $13 million. But for Witherspoon, it stood as a testament to a solid and enduring career. He never claimed to be a Hollywood tycoon. He simply saw himself as an artist who lived comfortably thanks to the laughter he brought to others. What stood out was his perspective on money. Witherspoon once shared, "I don't care about getting rich, I care about working. If I make people laugh, that's the reward." This humility only deepened the admiration colleagues and fans had for him. For John, the most valuable asset wasn't the millions in the bank. It was the millions of people who laughed because of him. Real estate, a home and a lasting legacy. If John Witherspoon's net worth reflected his resilience in the world of comedy, then his real estate choices revealed how he chose to preserve the fruits of his lifelong labor. Unlike many Hollywood stars who chased after lavish mansions and multi-million-dollar estates, Witherspoon opted for homes that were modestly comfortable, warm, and, most importantly, suitable for raising a family. In the early 2000s, he invested in 2 properties in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles, a quiet, safe residential area favored by many artists. The first house was purchased in 2001 for around $830,000 and the second in 2002 for about $550,000. After nearly 2 decades, the value of these homes had multiplied significantly, becoming a key part of the estimated $4 million net worth he left behind. But for John Witherspoon, material value wasn't everything. The home in Sherman Oaks wasn't just an asset, it was a family sanctuary. It was where he and his wife, Angela Robinson, raised their 2 sons, Alexander and JD. It was the setting for simple yet warm family dinners, a gathering spot for artist friends, and a place frequently visited by close friend David Letterman, who was also JD's godfather. Tragically, it was in this very home that John Witherspoon took his final breath on October 29, 2019. That home, therefore, holds emotional significance far beyond what any paper value can convey. It became part of the legacy John left behind, not merely a place to live, but a symbol of a life devoted to his craft, while also nurturing the happiness of his family. This simplicity also reflected his character. Though a comedy legend, Witherspoon never flaunted his wealth. He chose Sherman Oaks over Beverly Hills to show that true happiness comes from family and friendship, not from extravagant mansions. And it is precisely this quality that endeared him even more to audiences. An artist who lived just like the characters he portrayed, relatable, down to earth, and always full of laughter. A quiet personal life behind the spotlight. When people think of John Witherspoon, they often recall his legendary comedic roles on screen. But few know that behind the spotlight, he chose a peaceful life, rooted in family and close friendships. It was this contrast that shaped the image of a complete artist, explosive on set, yet grounded in daily life. John met and fell in love with Angela Robinson in the late 1980s. They married in 1988 and were together for over 3 decades, a rare and enduring journey in the ever-shifting world of entertainment. Angela was also involved in the arts, taking on acting and directing roles, though her name was never placed on equal footing with her husband's. Instead, she chose to be his support system, keeping the home fires burning so John could fully pursue his career. In interviews, John often expressed heartfelt gratitude toward his wife, affirming that without Angela, he would have struggled to balance his demanding work with family life. They had two sons, Alexander Witherspoon and John David J.D. Witherspoon. Alexander chose a private life, staying away from the media, while J.D. followed in his father's footsteps as a comedian and YouTuber. To J.D., his father was not just a strict parent, but also a companion. After John's passing, J.D. wrote, "Dad was my idol. The reason I chose this path. Every time I stand on stage, I think about how he used to make the whole room erupt with laughter." These heartfelt words touched many, clearly showing the profound influence John had on the next generation. Beyond his family, Witherspoon built enduring relationships with fellow entertainers. He and David Letterman were close friends for over 45 years, a bond so strong that Letterman became J.D.'s godfather. John was also often seen alongside comedians like Tim Reed, Jay Leno, and Robin Williams, and was considered family by the Wayans, thanks to their deep connection during the making of the Wayans Brothers. These relationships were not just built on professional collaborations, but nurtured through John's trademark sincerity and humor. Unlike many Hollywood stars, John never sought a lavish lifestyle. He once said, "I don't need a mansion or fancy cars. I just need a home filled with laughter and loved ones." And he lived exactly that way. His simplicity made him a rare example. A successful artist untouched by showbiz extravagance, a husband and father who always put family first. Perhaps it was this peaceful personal life that allowed John Witherspoon to sustain the positive energy he poured into every performance. Each role, each time he stepped onto a stage, carried that spirit, a man who cherished his home, loved his friends, and treated laughter as a gift to leave behind. And when he passed, the sorrow reached beyond his family. It spread to audiences everywhere, to people who had come to see John as a familiar presence in their own lives. An unusual death, a shock to all of Hollywood. On October 29, 2019, Hollywood was stunned by the news that John Witherspoon had suddenly passed away at his home in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles. A man still immersed in his work, having just completed several film projects and preparing to return for the next installment of Friday, was gone. On what seemed like an ordinary evening, there were no warnings, no signs that his body was on the brink of collapse. The cause was later confirmed in the death certificate: an acute heart attack, a direct result of coronary artery atherosclerosis, a condition he had long carried. Medical records also noted that John had a history of high blood pressure and obesity, silent risk factors that had gradually built up and ultimately led to the fatal cardiac event. By the time emergency responders arrived, he was unresponsive. For his family, the loss felt like a bolt from the blue. Just hours earlier, John had been laughing, chatting, filling their home with the joy that had always defined it. What made the loss even more heartbreaking was the fact that John's career was far from over. Before his passing, he had completed Reality Queen and I Got the Hookup 2, and had also agreed to reprise his role as Willie Jones in Last Friday, the long-anticipated sequel nearly 2 decades in the making. The project had been delayed for years, and before filming could even begin, John was gone, leaving a void that could not be filled. Ice Cube, his close co-star, later expressed regret that Last Friday wasn't completed in time for John to make one final appearance in the role that made him famous. The tragic news spread quickly. Social media was flooded with tributes reading "R.I.P. John Witherspoon." Fellow entertainers, from veteran names like Arsenio Hall and George Wallace, to younger artists like Chance the Rapper, all expressed their grief. Ice Cube wrote that the world wouldn't be as funny anymore without John. His son J.D. heartbreakingly called him "my best friend," while Angela Robinson, his wife of more than 30 years, quietly shared a family photo along with a short but heart-wrenching farewell. John Witherspoon's sudden passing not only interrupted a career that was still glowing, but also delivered a devastating emotional blow to those who loved him. Laughter had always been John's greatest gift to the world, but his unexpected death turned the smiles of millions into tears. And it was from that moment of loss that a bigger question began to emerge. The question of why the Friday cast was absent from his funeral, a subject that soon became the center of public attention. Why didn't the Friday cast attend John Witherspoon's funeral? Immediately after the sudden death of John Witherspoon, a wave of debate erupted. Why didn't the Friday cast attend his funeral? The question led many to question the bond between the former castmates who had helped create one of the most iconic street comedies of all time. However, upon closer examination, it becomes clear that the situation was largely a misunderstanding that had been blown out of proportion. The Witherspoon family held a public memorial on November 5, 2019 in Los Angeles, calling it a celebration of life rather than a sorrowful funeral. The event was attended by a wide circle of friends, colleagues, and fans. Among them were familiar faces from the Friday series: Ice Cube Chris Tucker, Tommy Tiny Lister, Debo, and Anna Maria Horsford, who played Craig's mother in the film. Ice Cube took the stage, his voice trembling as he spoke about his on-screen father. He described John as a comedic genius, capable of turning any script into laughter. Ice Cube also admitted to a deep regret that last Friday, the sequel John had waited nearly 2 decades for, never began filming before John's passing. Chris Tucker, who had shared the screen with John in the original film, was quieter, but his presence alone was a sign of deep respect. Horsford and Lister, who had helped form the on-screen Jones family, also attended to say their goodbyes. So in truth, the Friday cast did attend, contrary to the implications of several misleading social media posts at the time. While many colleagues were present, a few recognizable faces were absent. Regina King, who played John's daughter in Friday, and later collaborated with him on The Boondocks, could not attend due to a demanding schedule. Rather than stay silent, she sent a heartfelt tribute video in which she expressed her love and gratitude to John Witherspoon, a clip that was played during the memorial. Marlon Wayans, who regarded John as a father figure from their time on the Wayans brothers, was also absent due to filming obligations. He wrote on Instagram that every time they parted, John would give him a tight hug, and that those hugs would now serve as their final goodbye. Marlon added, "I know you'd say, 'Marlon, go do your job.' And I listened." These cases show that the absences weren't due to neglect or indifference, but entirely because of circumstances. Each person chose their own way to honor him, Regina, through video, Marlon, through deeply emotional words. Part of the public's confusion stemmed from a misunderstanding between a private burial and the public memorial. It's possible the Witherspoon family held a small private funeral for close relatives beforehand. Many fans not seeing Friday cast members at the private burial rushed to assume they were absent. In reality, at the official memorial, most of the cast was present and expressed genuine affection and tribute. What matters most is that none of the people who worked with John Witherspoon turned their backs on him. Ice Cube publicly apologized to him on stage, Chris Tucker shed tears. Regina King sent a moving video, and Marlon Wayans penned a heartfelt farewell. Each in their own way, they all paid tribute to a man who had become a legend. The rumor that the Friday cast didn't attend the funeral was simply the result of gossip and confusion. The truth is, they were there, in person or through words sent from afar, and every one of them regarded John Witherspoon as an irreplaceable part of their journey. A memorial filled with tears and laughter. The sudden passing of John Witherspoon not only shocked his family and colleagues, but also sparked a wave of widespread mourning. People grieved not only for the artist who had passed, but also for the laughter, for the optimism he had brought into the world. At the memorial service on November 5, 2019, the atmosphere was both warm and heavy with emotion. Friends and colleagues took turns sharing humorous memories and everyday stories that made the audience sometimes burst out laughing, sometimes quietly weep. Cedric the Entertainer, George Wallace, Angela Gibbs, Bill Bellamy, and many other prominent names spoke from their hearts, each offering a unique perspective, but all in agreement that John Witherspoon was irreplaceable. David Letterman, his friend of 45 years, declared John's career was built on the love he gave to people, through every role and every laugh. As the song Chances Are played to close the service, many could no longer hold back their tears. Soon after the sad news broke, the hashtag #JripJohnWitherspoon quickly trended across social media. Ice Cube wrote, "Life won't be as funny anymore without John." Regina King posted a photo with John and called him a father, a grandfather, and a comedic inspiration. Arsenio Hall shared, "Our comedy brotherhood just lost one of its own." Meanwhile, Chance the Rapper called John the definition of an icon. Fans flooded platforms with clips from his most beloved performances, from the streetwise wisdom of Willie Jones in Friday to the witty voiceover of Granddad in The Boondocks. Every video, every image became a place for the community to come together and remember. And the tributes didn't stop at social media. Several TV programs and film networks dedicated time to honoring him. Adult Swim aired a marathon of the Boondocks episodes featuring Witherspoon's voice framing it as a farewell. Colleagues organized a special comedy night in Los Angeles, where comedians reenacted some of John's most iconic bits, turning the memorial into a celebration of laughter, just the way he would have wanted. Rather than simply bowing their heads in mourning, audiences chose to remember him through joy, laughter, and gratitude. That more than anything, proved that John Witherspoon's legacy did not end with his death. It lives on in memories and in the laughter of generations to come. John Witherspoon's passing leaves behind more than a half-century career. He leaves a priceless legacy. John Witherspoon passed away, leaving behind not only a career that spanned more than half a century, but also a priceless legacy laughter family love and the deep respect of friends and colleagues. The confusion surrounding whether the Friday cast attended his funeral only served to highlight a deeper truth: their affection for him was sincere, whether through physical presence or heartfelt tributes from afar. That legacy lives on in every line he spoke, every burst of laughter he inspired, and in the hearts of millions of fans around the world. If you too loved John Witherspoon, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue telling behind-the-scenes stories of stars who never fade from memory.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.